Hi there. It's time to do a midsummer, should have been probably for some of these a month ago, pruning on perennials. Let me show you what we're doing. So these are coreopsis and they looked fantastic for a really long time this summer. You can see there's still some blooms on here, although I think this is actually their second flushing out, and you can also see they look pretty rough. These definitely should have been pruned back, at least a couple, maybe even a month ago, 3 or 4 weeks. So what that does when you prune is it helps the plant regenerate. And you can see here, these are some of the same plant that I've already worked on trimming them back. There is new, fresh growth coming in. So like I said, if I had done this when the blooms were first really looking scruffy, there would be a lot more probably of this new fresh growth. But the plant has been trying to support the older stuff and hasn't been able to put the energy into the new stuff. So what I'm doing to prune is you need some very simple things. You need a good set of a nice set of pruning shears. These happen to be Felco's, but I've also used others in the past. I've got 3 or 4 different varieties. It really doesn't matter. You just want it to have a decently sharp blade so that it's slicing and not crimping things, bending them. So basically just a good, nice pair of sharp pruners. I like to use gloves just because I live out in the country and my property like 3.5 years ago was basically a scrubby woods, and so there are times when there's poison ivy. So I wear gloves just to protect myself a little bit from the potential poison ivy, which, by the way, I probably shouldn't be touching the hand of the gloves, because if you didn't know, poison ivy, the reason people get a reaction is there's an oil in the plant or on the plant, and that oil can stay on things like pruners, like gloves, like your clothes. So you want to be careful if you are susceptible to reacting to poison ivy, not to touch things. And if you think you may have gotten into some poison ivy with your things like tools, a couple places I checked on the internet about that suggested using ethanol or rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, to clean them, and that should take those oils off. But so I just try to be a little cautious. And then I like to use, this is a kangaroo bag that has the hard shell on the bottom. I love this bag. It's from Fiskars, Fisk, I think AR. Yeah, Fiskars. And I definitely recommend the hard bottom. It just has been very sturdy. That has lasted me now 3 years with no sign of any issues. And I like that it's got a handle on the bottom. I also like that it can be condensed down, and you can hook the little toggle there, and it's flat, and it just makes a circle, and it's with the handles. You could hang it on your garage wall, so it takes up basically no space. The other thing I like to use when I'm doing pruning chores is I like to have just a big 5-gallon bucket with a stiffer kneeling pad on top of it. Is like a seat, and that way I don't have to bend over as much if I'm working on something that's a little more fussy, that I have to really kind of dig in and be careful about pruning. So these are getting pruned. I've already pruned back one of my lavenders. I'll show you that in a minute, how that gets done. There are some things that I'm not decided yet on whether or not I'm going to tackle. For example, daylilies. Daylilies, I could come in here and I could take off all of these stalks where the flower heads were. But honestly, it's just work that I don't think I have time for, and it doesn't really hurt the plants. Yes, they would probably put some more flowers out faster if I could if I went around and took those off, because otherwise it's putting energy into making these seed pods. But it's just not something that I have the time for, and it's not hurting the plant to not do that. So those are low on the priority list. Another plant that I'm not sure what I'm going to do about is I have several astilbe here in this front bed, and I don't know if maybe they just don't get quite enough, if they get too much hot sun on them during parts of the day, if they're just not getting enough water. I don't use any kind of irrigating. Once a plant has been established, my philosophy has been that where I live, we get enough rain. It should be okay unless we happen to be in some sort of a drought situation. And then, even then, unless it's something that's newly planted, I'm going to be honest, you're kind of on your own. I have too many landscape beds to be going around irrigating and watering things unless you're, like I said, newly planted, and then I'll take care of, a little more babying. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about these astilbes. Most of my astilbe in this flower bed, you can see the bottoms are all very crispy, crunchy. The flower heads have definitely, been and done their thing. So I'm toying with cutting these all back down to the ground and seeing if they will flush back out. It's mid-July here in Ohio. It's typically right now, this time of year, it tends to be pretty hot, less rain. Things like our yards tend to get kind of crispier and almost go into a hibernation. They just sort of shut down. So I'm not sure. Those may get chopped to the ground and see if they'll flush back out healthier and happier when the weather starts to get a little bit cooler. That may be what I'm going to do, but that again is also going to be a little lower on my list because I've got things like this that will benefit more from a pruning right now than I think that will, because that's going to, I think, have to go down to the ground. Whereas this, I can just get down to about the level of where some of the new growth's coming in, and then these should look nicer pretty quickly. So that is what I'm going to be doing. Taking these things down, like I said, I just grab a hand like this and then take my pruners. I'm wearing my gloves usually when I do this, but I grab a handful like this, and then I just come in with the pruners while I'm holding that handful, because when it's kind of clumped together, then once I've taken one clip at it, then the stuff I'm taking off just comes off in one handful. Can't do that while I'm holding my phone to show you, so you'll have to just sort of imagine. But that is what we're doing today, trying to get a little pruning done, and basically use the same system with lavender. The main thing I want to just point out with lavender is you do want to be careful not to go too deep, because you don't want to get down into the base where the stems are more like wood, like this. Do you see that? It's kind of more wood-like, where up here it's a little more flexible. If you get down into that wooden base, you can create a situation where your lavender may not be very happy, and it may or may not make it because of just how lavender grows. So thanks for joining me here in Aunt Susan's garden.